So this evening, we are presenting the draft 2016 budget. And the first thing to emphasize, of course, is that it is the draft. Every year, we present a draft budget. Last year, we presented a draft budget, which I believe had a tax increase close to 4%. Ultimately, we adopted a budget with a tax increase of 0. This year, we are presenting a draft budget that has a tax increase exceeding 5%. And by the time we get to the final budget proposal, our tax increase will not be 0, but it will be closer than it is today. We are working on a number of things to get it there, and I'll touch on a couple of those in a minute. This isn't the first draft, by the way. This is probably the 5th or 6th draft. It's the 2nd or 3rd that I have seen that the committee has worked on. And we will continue to generate drafts until we reach a draft that we are comfortable with. That will be presented and adopted ideally on May 25th. So you may ask yourself, why are you bothering to introduce a budget that you know is going to change? And the answer is that we are legally required to do so within a certain window of time, and that is where we find ourselves. So we are bringing forth the draft that we're currently working on as the one that we are presenting today. Prior to final adoption, there will be a public hearing. We had one last year, we have one every year. Last year, one person showed up. I'm hopeful that we'll have a few more folks this year. Eugenia did a great presentation last year, and this year I'll be doing it in conjunction with her to explain to folks who are interested the components of what's in the budget. So just a couple things to understand about the budget before we move forward. So in looking deeply into the budget, one thing that's clear is that we are in a position now in 2016 where we're in a way making up for some sins of the past. If you look at what the expense numbers are, the biggest expense that we have came as a surprise to me. 13% of the tax revenue that we collect pays for retiree health benefits. In the past, we've had some contracts that have been very favorable to retirees, and we continue to pay for those. So that doesn't help the budget. While we're talking about people who are retiring, I think it's well known that when we have long tenured employees who retire, we pay them out for any accrued sick or vacation time. And in the past, councils have borrowed large sums of money to do that. What we're now doing is setting aside some money every year against a future obligation that we know is coming, which is prudent financial management, right? But it doesn't help the current year budget, so that's another struggle that we have. Another thing too, if you look at the budget, we have, Eugenia pointed this out to me in great detail. If you look, we don't really have a lot of reserves. We don't have a cushion. We don't have a rainy day fund. And if you look at what's happening in Atlantic City, we don't want to end up there. So we're putting up some reserves this year, and you have to be prudent, right? It's a fine line, because every dollar that you put in reserves is a tax dollar that you didn't take down. So it's a fine line, but you have to have a reserve. So we're being prudent, we're being careful. We will have some reserves up. So those are just some points to know. And one thing I just want to mention, because I hadn't really thought about this until I was really engaged in the budget. But when I was asking Eugenia, I said, what are, we've done all these buildings, right? We have the lofts, what are the ratables? How much is that helping our budget this year? And in asking that question, it occurred to me, we have projects that we've turned down, and I know there's various reasons for doing it, but it occurred to me that vacant lots actually cost taxpayers money. That's where our money is, and we need to be a little careful in how we develop, of course, but I think we do need to develop, so I'll just put that out there. That's just my finance hat speaking. So where we are now is we're taking a lot of positive steps. We're in negotiations for some shared services. We're looking to cut expenses throughout various departments. We're considering going out for quotes on our employee health care. We haven't done that in years. So Eugenia is setting up a meeting, and we're going to leverage Councilman Whalen's expertise with insurance also. And as I said, we're going to have a public hearing sometime over the next 4 weeks, which we will present a draft which probably won't be final, but it won't be this one either. And we'll be taking questions, and we'll be able to give a little more detail then. We're looking forward to hearing ideas. We did set up a special email address because there was a lot of commentary out in the media of people who had comments about the budget. So we have a special email address for people who wish to share their thoughts. It's budget@redbanknj.org. We have 2 emails so far. Both of them actually were very helpful. And I believe that's pretty much it. We're looking at the budget adoption, as I said, on May 25th.
Thank you, Linda, and I appreciate the work that you and your committee has done. The members of the committee work very closely with our CFO as well as our administrative team. And again, I respect the difficult decisions that you've had to make coming to the table. And as I told you earlier, this is, as you've indicated, a draft or proposed budget. We are not taking any action on the actual budget this evening, except to introduce it. The standard practice has been in the past, and I anticipate we will do that collaboratively, is that before the public hearing is held, I will certainly want the auditor, and I know you will, to sit down with us confidentially and to review all of our contracts that we have. Again, the capping of employee benefits was something that we did do for the past 17 years. So we've had that in place pursuant to state law. We're talking about employees who were hired before the state law was changed and before municipalities could do that or were actually told to do it. We actually did it before most towns in our area even contemplated doing it. So we're catching up on people who have been faithful employees for 25, 30 years, and we have a contractual obligation with them. And you know something, you've got to be fair to your staff. Whatever they were hired at is what you have to be consistent with. Having said that, I think most municipalities, and this is what we will talk about before we do the final budget, have completely overhauled and reviewed a lot of their packages that they provide without necessarily cutting back on benefits. I know that we have, in my opinion, a dental system that perhaps could be reviewed. There are competing plans. Should be reviewed. I tried to do that 2 years ago, didn't go anywhere. We'll look at that again. Same thing with the health benefits. I really think that the best answer to that is in the competitive factor, and we'll look at that again, and hopefully we can do that before introduction and see what we can do. But I know our staff has been extraordinarily generous with their time and what they do. We do have the best employees, and I think that us sitting together, me sitting together with you and the auditor and other members of the committee, well, we have to watch out that we don't have a violation of Public Meetings Act. Less than a quorum, I think we'll come up with a plan that's feasible. One thing that you did mention, and I still believe it was the right thing to do, and still believe it is the right thing to do. The state has provided the municipalities with the opportunity, based on the 2% cap that they've adopted, that in dealing with the inherited provision providing for employee retirement benefits, the municipalities are able to plan for them in a repayment plan by a 5-year option, which is what we've done. I'm proud of the fact we've done that. Our carrying costs on that has been almost minimal. And again, I respect your position where you want to put it in the budget to handle it, but I think the state has given us the tools to protect our residents. I frankly prefer to do it over a 5-year gap. But then, of course, I wanted to do the meter replacement over a 5-year period also, but that's the council's decision. So I really think I thank you for the work that we've done. I think that, as you said, it's not going to be the final budget. It is merely the introduced budget. And we'll work together, Will, to try to get it to a manageable level. Anybody else? Any members of the committee? Okay, do you want to deal with the other issue also, or not? The other report of the Finance Committee that is inherent as part of budgetary consideration?
It is actually. So as part of examining the budget has 2 sides. The budget has the revenue side, which typically we think of as the taxes, and then it has the expense side, which is what I've been speaking about. With respect to the revenue side, we examine all sources of income. And we look at them to make sure that we are leveraging in a reasonable way income sources that can keep the taxes of the residents as low as possible while not creating an onerous burden elsewhere. So as part of that, we took a look at what we are charging for our parking meters. And we had, I think, 8 different scenarios that we looked at, and we costed those out, and we thought about what would make the most sense, both from a budget standpoint and also from a burdensome standpoint. So we took these scenarios that we thought would probably make the most sense. We debated them in committee, and then we asked Councilman Whalen to discuss them with the parking committee. And as Councilman Whalen is also the liaison with River Center, we asked him to take them to River Center and also speak with the business community to gain an understanding of, what would be perhaps the most palatable, and that we would live with that. So having gone through that process, we have come up with a proposal to increase the rates in the lots to match the rates on the streets. So the rates in the lots are currently 50 cents an hour. We are proposing to raise the lots to $1 an hour, and at the same time maintain the differential between the lots and the streets. So the streets would be $1.50 an hour, the lots would be $1 an hour. We would not be changing the hours of the parking meters at all. And we would also be instituting a 2-hour minimum in the lots, which we don't really think will impact that many people, since most of the people who park in the lots tend to be people who are here for dining, shopping, things of that nature. The streets will still be available for 10 minutes, half an hour, things. And I think there's also a permit increase in there as well. So that's really the ordinance that we are proposing. It is just for introduction. It is not for final adoption. So that's where we stand.
Linda, thank you. I know that you've been dealing quite extensively with those issues also, and I thank you for your hard work. One comment is that I think you may have left out is that the time limits on the White Street lot have gone back and forth over the years. And the whole idea was you were trying to give people an opportunity to not be displaced from whatever they're doing, whether they're having lunch or they're at one of the shops. And a lot of businesses have said that there's been a substantial amount of abuse with respect to the prime parking location on White Street being taken up by 6-7 hours at times. So I think that your proposal does make some sense because it pushes the long-term parking on the east side lots, which are the underutilized lots. So let's try it, but the long-range solution is obviously something that has not been rolled out. I know Councilman Whalen and I will be proposing some ideas in terms of the movement forward, which has been discussed by professionals and by our professional staff at the council meeting, I believe next week or so, in terms of rolling it out, and then having further public meetings and discussions in terms of comprehensive moving forward to the new century with our parking design and implementation, which would, we got to stop not using the term, but we have to start using the term multi-level parking facility to enhance our parking. So this is just one aspect of the plan, and it's got to move forward. So I appreciate your work, and I know it's going to be painful for some people, but you go to our competitive municipalities and the parking rates, they are substantially lower than we are. There doesn't seem to be too much negative effect from economies of scale. I'm sorry, they're lower.
Higher.
They're higher. Yeah. I want everything to be lower, but they're higher, yeah. They are higher. Asbury and Long Branch is higher. It doesn't seem to be an inelastic result from the economies of scale.
And Mayor, just for a point, if this change is to be reflected in the budget, it needs to be introduced with the budget. It has to coincide with the budget if we are to realize any benefit from this action in this year's budget.
Okay. Any members of the council or the committee have questions for Councilwoman Schwarzenbauer?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out something. Linda had said that the rates in the lots would be would go to $1 an hour, and what's reflected on the ordinance 06 says that it's $1.50 an hour. And Councilwoman Burnham had pointed out when we sat down and took a quick glance at this that when we met in committee with Councilman Whalen the other night, we agreed to go to $1 an hour, but here it says $1.50 an hour.
I suspect there may be a typo in the ordinance. The intention was to go to $1 an hour.
That's my...
Yeah, because it's 50 cents an hour now, and we discussed the minimum on the credit card the other night, but what's reflected in this, in all of the parking lots on English Plaza, White Street, etc. We park all say $1.50 on this this ordinance.
Yeah, I believe it's supposed to be an equal increase across the board. Again, have the street parking slightly more to encourage people to use the long-term parking lot.
I would also like to ask in regards to Marine Park, you know, since it is a Green Acres Park, we're under regulations. I don't know exactly what they are. Mr. Sickles, I think you might know. But are we allowed to charge $1 an hour?
Absolutely.
Charge any, even for Marine Park, any parks, you can charge anything you want. The only caveat is that a percentage of those particular charges that you do, similar to, we're going to be taking action on Riverside Gardens Park or something else, part of that go for park replenishment and park enhancement. Those are the state regulations.
Right.
Any other members of the council have any questions? Okay, well,
I have a question.
okay, go ahead.
Have we looked into renegotiating any of the pilots that we have? Because, you know, we've got a bunch of pilots, and our water's gone up, and our services have gone up, and
Very good question.
have we, I
Very
mean,
good
Riverview
question.
just bought 2 more
Borough
ratables.
attorney can probably opine, you know, in a legal sense, but my general understanding is that on various pilots, they are the pilots that are in existence at the time. There is a clause for a cost of living increase on all of our pilots. And if you're referring to a particular pilot, which is probably the largest area pilot that we have, that has in fact been renegotiated.
Which one are you speaking of?
Well, we're not going to mention names, but
Oh.
it's on the river.
Okay.
However, the general rule is that unless they are before the municipality with respect to an expansion outside of the area of their designated area, you really don't have the legal authority to force them to pilot on them. Unless they're, in other words, if they're just rehabbing or doing whatever they're doing on their property, you can't do anything with that. There was a state statute, there was a state bill that was pending. It was vetoed by the governor. It would have automatically granted a tax of certain elements. It was passed by the legislatures on medical facilities that are tax exempt. That would have eliminated the pilots. That has been vetoed by the governor, and I believe the legislature has not taken any action on that, but there's other bills pending as a result of a tax court decision that forces municipalities to look into the question of tax exempt properties and commercial utilization and taxing the commercial part.
Well, my concern would be, you know, the YMCA has enlarged. Have we renegotiated the pilot with that? And then, you know, we've got that local.
That's an extraordinarily good question. First of all, they haven't enlarged. The YMCA property is the same as what they had before. What they've done is they've rehabilitated their property. However, the pilot that we have with them is extraordinarily beneficial to all of our school children in Red Bank. And that is, as you know, every single school child in Red Bank from pre-K to the end of high school, whether they go to the charter school, the primary school, the middle school, or the high school, or St. James, or Red Bank Catholic, as long as they're Red Bank residents, they have the right for free basic membership at the Y. So that's their pilot with us. They provide health and wellness information and activities for our children. So that's worth something also.
How about Locust Landing? You know, when we waived that $68,000 a couple of years ago.
Well, I think the borough attorney would probably answer that if she is aware of it, but I'm not familiar with any renegotiations on that.
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar
You're
with
not
that.
familiar. We'll talk about that then.
Yeah.
That's just another idea. Okay.
So the answer is yes, you can renegotiate pilots on some of them. You really can't unless they're outside of what they're doing. For example, Count Basie Theater never had a pilot with us before. When they moved into the Greenleaf building, which used to be a house right across the street from us, I met with them and they agreed to a pilot. The pilot was that they would pay us whatever the taxes were on the Greenleaf property, plus a cost of living increase every year, which they're doing. That was the pilot. So in other words, they made up for the loss in taxes. I frankly tried to get lunch break to do the same thing, but I got nowhere.
You know, I just don't understand with all this new development, you know, why we even have to deal with an increase. I mean, everybody talks about the ratables, you know, the lofts and the other big apartment houses that we did, the Metropolitan. I don't understand why we don't ever seem to, I mean, I know last year we did get down to a flat rate,
Our
but,
yeah, we did- we
health
depleted a lot of
costs
the
are
reserves.
13% for retiree benefits alone.
Yeah,
That
look
goes
at the
up
budget
every year,
presentation,
so-
looks like.
thank you.
And by the way, the lofts and the Station Place project were only completed. They got their COs at the end of last year, so they really haven't been taxed for the tax year 2016. 2016 is going to be the first year for that. Yeah, and I think you're going to see a change based upon that.
And, you know, I think it's great that we increased our parking price because we are the cheapest around. But I don't
We're
want
not the cheapest, we're the least expensive.
You're right, you're right. You
Cheapest.
said it right. I said it wrong. I'm political.
I'm kidding with you.
No, you're absolutely right about that, but I just don't think that we should use, you know, revenue from parking to balance our budget. I think we need to look for other deeper ways to do it.
Well, you know something, I understand your point, but I think we would be foolhardy if we didn't use an ability that we have, just like every other municipality does, just like every other shore town does, to use our resources for the benefit of our residents. And if we don't have a beach.
I understand that thinking. I've heard it, we've heard it a million times.
But it works.
But we do have a river, you know, and if we used our river better, we get our boat rides.
Oh, and that's why I want a riverboat at Marine Park.
And I agree with you.
We have a river that is not used that much. That's the problem.
Yeah,
Except by very wealthy people who have big yachts,
right.
and they don't stay in Redmond.
Yeah, we have, and to Cindy, to your point, you know, when I said this is a draft that we had, you know, we've gone through several drafts, we've done a lot of cutting already to get here, and we're still cutting more. So I think your point is we should cut expense. We've evaluated the need for new hires, in almost every case we've said no. Where we have to do a replacement, we've delayed it by several months to get gains from frictional unemployment. We have sold off borough vehicles, and we are taking that income into the budget this year. We've adjusted reserves where it makes sense. We've looked at surplus from prior year. We've brought in a prudent amount, not all of it, but a prudent amount. So we've looked at a lot of different levers, and really we're not saying, oh, let's just raise the parking, you know, parking.
No, I know, that's just an added.
No, I take your point, but I just want you to be aware there's a lot of work going on behind the
I know.
scenes.
Have we thought about selling off those 250 homes in
Yes.
Fairhaven that are outside of the footprint and see what they would give us? See what we could get for that? Because then we get,
Yeah, they generate revenue, Cindy, so.
yeah, but it's also a
one-time
capital
list.
expenditure
And then,
that we have.
what's a capital expenditure?
What we do over there, we took out a $500,000 bond to fix a fire hydrant in front of a house that was on fire because there wasn't enough pressure in that fire hydrant to put out the fire. So what I'm saying is, maybe it's time to get rid of what's outside of the footprint, get a one-time revenue from that.
Yeah, so the thing is, you get a one-time lift, but then you lose the ongoing income stream.
Yeah,
So
but
when
then
you
we
present
get rid of the
value-
capital
so when you present
expenditure.
value it backwards, you lose. That's
Capital
why-
expenditure to be paid
Yeah,
off.
you do.
Yes,
It's
capital
revenue.
will be paid off.
And it generates revenue for the borough.
I just had one more question on ordinance 06 on the parking. And I just wanted to ask, we had talked about 2-hour minimum, and I was that reflected in this.
Bottom of the first page.
Yeah, the last.
First page, box.
Okay, I see. On the original draft, it said 2 hours, now it says $2. Got it, thank you.
All right, any other questions?